Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I just muted myself. I'm now unmuted. This is the penultimate FinOps Summit of 2021. Penultimate, it's my second favorite word. We got one more coming up that we'll tell you about later. So we are FinOps Foundation. I think a lot of you have been here right before, but we're focused on helping the people, you who all do this practice of FinOps, to advance your careers. So I wanted to start off with a Hawaiian word. I grew up on the big island of Hawaii. I spent like 17 years there. And some of the words, I actually grew up on a sugar plantation on the Hamakua coast. And one of the words that always stuck out for me from Hawaiian culture was kuleana. And when I was thinking about this presentation today, which is all about cultures of accountability, this really came to mind. So kuleana is this fantastic term that is all about responsibility and accountability, and really sort of being ready to take action for the things that belong to you, that are important to you. And this talk, or this set of talks today, is really, I think, well tied to that, because we've got people from 4 different countries, practitioners, consultants, vendors across the board. And our main 3 speakers, Amy Race from Citizens Bank, Robert Duffy from Expedia, and Yulia from Amdocs and then Logs. When we were doing the prep, they all talked about the concept of how they're getting their cultures to change, to start to be more accountable when it comes to cloud, which is a big shift. And this is exactly what FinOps is all about. And I stole this slide from the Container Group. Sorry, David and Bala, I'm stealing your slide for later, but it's all about how do we start to bring support together and accountability between these groups? How does the FinOps practitioner become that translator, that one who can sort of align the cultural lexicon? And then how do we start to drive accountability out to each persona to bring that kuleana out to them? Now, if you haven't been to one of these before, if you can look and read the tiny, tiny script on the screen here, this is not a webinar. Unlike pretty much every other event that I go to online, we are not just going to be having a few panelists or speakers throwing their thoughts at you. You're going to hear from the outputs of literally dozens and dozens of people who've been working over the last 4 to 6 weeks, and some of them for months, to put together the content you're going to see today. Working groups around state of FinOps, around containers, around resource utilization, diversity, equity, inclusion, the framework. Yes, we have great speakers and panelists, but we're also going to be outputting best practices as a part of this. And we encourage all of you to get involved at this level, Start to contribute. If you want to just listen, that's fine too, but start to contribute by being a part of some of these groups. And that's our mission, It's to advance you through community, education, through best practices, through standards that come together into the FinOps metaverse. There's a great meme circulating that Iceland did, the Icelandiverse, which is a riff on the metaverse from Facebook. But at the center of our whole world is the FinOps framework. And it's become sort of informal drinking game, which is every time JR says framework, take a drink, hopefully water for most of you. But you're going to hear a lot about the framework and how all the inputs from the summits, which we're at today, the training, the working groups, the meetups, everything feeds into the framework, and everything should come out of the framework. So we're going to be talking about how to interface all those areas as parts of it. Up here on the screen now is the NASCAR slide, the one that everybody loves to see in early decks, which is all the supporters. Behind the almost 5,000 practitioners, there's almost 50 corporate organizations who have decided to become a part of the foundation officially, donate time, donate money to support this community. I'd like to call it our 10 premier members, and these are in order of when they joined: Cloud Health by VMware, Google Cloud, SADA, Deloitte, Accenture, Verticent, Apptio, Cloudability, McKinsey & Company, NordCloud, an IBM company, and Software One. What's great about what all these companies are doing is that they're not only giving money, they're also giving time to working groups. And you'll see in the working groups, a lot of these companies contributing their product and leadership expertise. As always, with our no pitching code of conduct, we don't allow their salespeople in, we don't allow the marketing people in. And this is the group, the governing board, which takes the funds from training, from education, from the vendor memberships, and decides where to invest that to support the community. Independent body that actually has no voting rights on any technical best practices. We're going to hear about that later in the Technical Advisory Council. This is the group that is made up of cross-functional practitioners, vendors. This is my boss, Stacy's boss, Kevin's boss, the group that tells us what to do with our time, essentially. And before we get into the content, one of the things I wanted to highlight was that this weekend I opened up LinkedIn. I shouldn't have on a Sunday. I should have been just hanging out or sleeping or something. But I saw a bunch of certifications coming up, and I saw some really interesting job updates. So first one here, Andres Echeverry, apologies if I butchered your name, has been a practitioner in the community for a while from National Australia Bank. And I just saw he got a job now at Deloitte as a cloud advisor. That was cool to see. At the bottom, Ashley Ramatko there, very tiny text. She's been in this community forever, one of the original 26. She is now a director of Cloud FinOps at Pearson. Congrats, Ashley. I know you're not actually on this call because you had a conflict, but and one of the ones that made me the happiest, Melvin over here, who joined recently, is our U.S. Government Technical Advisory Council voting member, just got promoted to Deputy CIO of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Huge role. And Kevin, or sorry, too many people on the screen slacking me. Melvin is actually working on the government, U.S. federal government working group that's bringing FinOps into the government as part of this. And he did, if you see there, just also got FinOps certified last week, which was really cool to see. And part of that was, if you were here last month, I admitted that I had not gotten FinOps certified. And I went last week and I took the test and I got the fancy badge. Here it is. And I challenged Melvin and a few others, including Anders Hagman, to go take it, and they did, and that was great. Now, I'm not going to tell you what my score was or how long I took to complete the test, because I did write, some of the questions. But what was interesting was I didn't get 100%. And it was really a testament to the fact that the education committee, the working groups, have been evolving the test, making it harder, making it more about where the practice is now versus a couple of years ago when we first started it. So on the topic of certifications, we also just passed a really cool milestone that I'm going to pass to our good friend, Rob Martin, our Director of Learning, to share about that one. Rob?
Thanks. Thank you. Oh, you didn't build for me.
Oh, shoot. See, this is what you get when I run the things.
All right. So thank you for that introduction, and we're happy to build on JR's finally joining the ranks of the certified. Going back to September of 2019, Mike Fuller and I taught the first FinOps certification class at the CloudEcon event. That was in September of 19, and our first certification was awarded to Julie Fry, who is here with us, I think, unmuted today.
Hopefully. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm so good. This is so exciting, and I had no idea that I remember this now that JR had not taken it at the time. So welcome to the club, JR.
Thank you for letting me join the club, Julie. It's good to see your face. It's been a while.
I know, it's been crazy.
And so as our first FinOps practitioner awarded, I wanted to let Julie make our big announcement for today.
Yeah, so we have, being the first one, I'm very excited to say that we have reached over 1,000 people certified FinOps certified practitioner. And that is Tarek from Canada. So really exciting. Congratulations to him on becoming that 1,000th person. And, it's really great milestone for JR and the FinOps entire company and the organization. So congratulations to you guys too. I know this was not an easy feat, so it says a lot about you guys.
Thank you. And Tarek will be receiving a gift certificate for, of course, more FinOps training. And we'll have a few announcements about what FinOps training he might use that for in a little bit. Tarek is not on the call at this point, but we'll catch up with him as soon as we can do that.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Julie, and everybody who's been taking that and being a part of it. The next thing I wanted to highlight, and I will stop the screen share here and switch back to my focus for 1 second. Should be able to see me in the slide. There we go. Things are starting to go back in person to certain places, which is really cool. Our team had the luxury of getting together for the first time ever. We have never gotten together as a team because we formed during COVID, to support Jen Hayes from Fidelity and Udam Dewaraja from Citi, who presented on what is FinOps to a financial services group at the Open Source Strategy Summit about 2 weeks ago in New York. Now, I'm highlighting this because on the screen, if you look really closely, there are some new slides. There's a new definition of FinOps that is in a slide format, and there's also a FinOps Framework slide that we've launched. Steve Trash should post this, I think, to the Slack and the chat here in a minute, but there's a new sort of 5-slide intro to FinOps deck that any of you can use that basically tells the story of, what is FinOps? Why is it there? So look for more resources like this that are coming out in the coming weeks. The team also took the opportunity to get together for the first time and to huddle and take our masks off quickly to take a picture and put them back on. But we got to go see Hamilton in New York, and we got to do a great meetup with Dan Berg, who runs the New York City meetup, and some of the other groups there. And the reason I wanted to highlight this photo, not to give you all travel envy, but except that we're looking really to lean heavily in 2022 into how do we support the community in more meetups, whether they be in person where, possible and comfortable or allowed, whether they're virtual, and how do we scale the group of, I think, 22 regional meetups we have now into a much larger group. So last month, I shared that we had opened a job role for a new person to be our head of community, the last open seat currently on the foundation, and very excited to share and announce today that Mr. Joe Daly, formerly of Nationwide and Cardinal Health, will be joining the FinOps Foundation staff on December 1st as our new head of community. And before I let Joe talk, I want to toot his horn for a minute. Joe is the only person we know who has built a FinOps practice at multiple Fortune 100s, going all the way back to 2016. He's also one of the original 26 members of the foundation, holds a technical advisory council seat, which, by the way, Joe loses now because he's become staff, so we'll have a new seat open. And he's been a really key contributor to the foundation in terms of speaking, in terms of working group leadership, in terms of Joe is actually the highest poster, largest count of posts on Slack of all time of a non-staff member, which if you know Joe, you won't be surprised about at all. The other thing that Joe has been doing in the community is speaking a lot. He's spoken at reInvent multiple times. Are you seeing my screen there? Yes, you are. Great. He's spoken at reInvent multiple times. Joe is one of the most, I think, prolific podcasts and speakers out there and panelists. He's also been featured by AWS as one of their executive leaders in this space. And when we saw this quote by Sunaina Vadasari, about Joe and his leadership, leading teams, about being super proficient in cloud, his ability to motivate and share all this with a phenomenal sense of humor, we knew he was the right guy for this job. So very excited, Joe, to welcome you to the FinOps Foundation. Are you on the line?
I am. I absolutely am. I'm going to come in here, do some like Hulk Hogan, and as soon as the screen gets off, JR.
There it is.
In videos on me. All right, here we go. Oh, I got to help with this. Zipper it up with my FinOps shirt. So, hello, everyone. I'm super excited for you. I only have 2 minutes. One of the questions I was asked, why do you want this job? And honestly is because you folks are my tribe. And when I'm amongst my tribe, I am incredibly energized. It's why I'm on Slack all the time, because interacting with each of you energizes me. And what I want to do is energize you. And how am I going to cultivate that energy for you in the next 6 months? And through the ambassador program, you've heard us say ambassador a lot. We're going to make that known. If you want to be a leader, if you want to be a speaker, if you want to be a content maker, I will support you. JR just said more meetups around the globe, in person. As we can do this, I want to meet as many of you as possible, in person or virtual. Can't wait. Working groups as well. We have tremendous momentum in our working groups, and I want to continue supporting that, rolling that forward. And then I said, wait for it, although I only have 2 minutes, so I can't wait. SIGs, I said it, we're going to have SIG meetings. So SIG leaders, SIG liaisons, I'm here to support you and get you going in 2022, and just build that energy amongst all of you. I did it under 2 minutes.
Boom, that was totally under 2 minutes, I think. We're calling it under 2 minutes. Welcome, Joe. Yeah, so, if anybody wants to get more involved, they want to speak, they want to lead meetups, they want to help drive the community forward, Joe's your guy. Please reach out. We're going to be doing a lot there. And I think, Joe, we talked yesterday, what do they get out of this? It's really, we're looking to build more connection primarily, right?
Absolutely. And when you're connected, when there's all that connections, when we're all talking amongst ourselves and being amongst ourselves, we're having conversations, we're trading ideas, and we're creating more opportunities. And if we can get those opportunities in front of each of you and help you grab onto them, we can progress our career paths and build out more FinOps cultures and FinOps jobs across the globe. I'm super pumped. I am incredibly psyched by it.
Us too, man. Really glad you're part of the team. So thanks for making the jump from Fortune 100 to tiny nonprofit. All right. Well, with that, we are going to jump to the thing we do once in a while with new vendor members, which is let them take 30 seconds to introduce themselves. I'm going to start this with the code of conduct for everything that's coming later as well, which is contribute, be respectful, include others, don't pitch. Say what you do if you're a vendor, but don't say start that 30-day trial now, and treat others with respect. So with that, we've got 3 new general vendor members. We're going to start with Centalytics, who's hopefully unmuted, and we're going to give you the 30-second timer to tell us about you and what you do.
Hey,
Baruch, are you
hi,
there?
everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
My name is Babak Sharma. I manage partnership and FinOps practice within Centalytics. Well, Centalytics is a cloud management company, and we understand that cost optimization, resource tagging, chargeback are some of the key challenges that organizations face today. So we're here today to contribute towards the community by sharing some of the best practices that helped us overcome these challenges ourselves, and at the same time to continuously learn from the community to make our FinOps practice even better. So I look forward to a great journey with this great team and look forward to the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Do we have Tim from Expedia next?
Yeah, hello.
No, I think that's me. Hi, my name is Tim Rapp. Yeah, am I in focus? Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
All right, excellent. So my name is Tim Rapp. I'm a product owner and responsible for customer onboarding at Expedia. We're a fully cloud-agnostic metering and billing software vendor based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And what I can say is that FinOps so far has helped us greatly in bringing across that message of financial accountability for the enterprise, but also in our case with managed service providers, where we could actually, show that MSPs were experiencing revenue leakage because they did not apply FinOps guidelines properly, and then we made that tangible. So that was great, and we hope to give also some love back to the community. So yeah, looking
Awesome.
forward to that.
Thank you, Tim. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have is it Jan from Revology next?
Yes. Hi, this is Jan from Revology. We are a Google Cloud Premium partner serving more than 2,000 customers worldwide with our professional and managed services. We have many opportunities to see our customers adopting and practicing FinOps, where they struggle, what problems do they solve, and what techniques and tools they use. As the biggest challenge we see is how might we guide the companies through the proper FinOps adoption and find the right unit economy with them and start to perceive money spent in the cloud more as the investment than the cost. And this is why we joined the FinOps Foundation. Thank you guys for your work.
Welcome, Jan. Love your enthusiasm. Looking forward to working together.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, with that, we're going to get into the content. So first, we're going to talk about some of the working group updates, and then I'm going to pass to Steve Trask here to cover that. And then we're going to get into Amy Race from Citizens Bank talking about her FinOps journey. Steve, over to you.
Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. I just want to touch on projects in the working groups. First, I want to highlight the work by the Technical Advisory Council. If you move on to the next slide. The TAC are the independent body who vote and approve on the work coming out of the working groups, which integrates all into the framework. Plus, as JR mentioned, there will be an open TAC seat in January as Joe is joining the staff. Simply reach out to any of the foundation team if you're interested, but there will be more information coming about that process. Next slide. As you may have seen recently, we are proud to have launched the 2022 State of FinOps Survey. We've already received 360 responses, plus it's real time, it's actually updated from this morning. And that's just in the first 2 weeks. So it's fantastic. And thank you very much for everyone submitting their responses. This survey drives the report and is built by and for the community. The working group helped define the main areas of focus for 2022. This included improving the rigor of the survey from last year. For this, we are utilizing the Linux Foundation research team. For example, this is helping us build out more robust segmentation so we can slice and dice the data in January to give you deeper insights. And it also, we wanted to make sure that we gained much more actionable data for those working groups. potentially by collecting those things like benchmarking data, so you can dive deeper into those topics, and also potentially kick off mini surveys moving forward. Another key area was understanding maturity of practitioners and also year-on-year analysis. All this helps deliver valuable feedback to the community about the industry. So if you've not taken survey yet, I would encourage you to go to data.finops.org after the summit, because we've got some great content coming up. And you'll also receive a new FinOps Foundation t-shirt. It's going to be released in the coming weeks. We've also been working to resolve on international shipping. So no matter your location, your FinOps maturity, your experience, your industry, we want to hear all these different perspectives, because that's what is a community.
Apologies to those outside of North America. Our previous shipper was charging us $80 to send a t-shirt to say Brazil. So we resolved that now. So you can get t-shirts shortly.
Cool. And as a reminder, you can always see the active projects on finops.org under the projects overview page. And it's the best way to get involved in the community and the foundation. Simply join the Slack channels, reach out to the relevant contacts, which are listed here, and join the conversation, really. So looking forward to it. Thank you for your time. Back to you, JR.
All right, our moment of self-care here for a second while we get ready for the first speaker. Amy, are you available? Are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. So Amy, welcome. Amy is the Cloud Governance and Financial Operations Leader at Citizens Bank. And we were willing to bring her in because Amy has a really interesting story where a couple of years ago, when we first met her, she was completely new to the FinOps space, had been at the bank for, I think, what, 10 years almost, 8 years, and decided that this was her new career path. And maybe, Amy, if I can start you off for you in your slides, what was the reason you thought the bank needed to start a FinOps practice, and what pulled you in?
Well, yeah, so that's a great question. So I was given a role in a new governance team that was supporting infrastructure and cloud governance at the same time, which I knew very little about at all. I didn't really understand the cloud or the concepts thereof. And I started looking into what cloud governance was all about. And it started to bring me a lot to the financial role. And I had quite a bit of experience. I don't know if you want to go through some of those slides. That's what I looked like back then. This is what I look like now. I had a lot of experience building financial models from an OpEx perspective for different towers within the infrastructure world. At Citizens, I had done it for the network, and we had a huge budget. So that was a big undertaking, but it was very tangible and it was very understandable. You bought something, you had a price, you paid the invoice. It was not the variable spend of the cloud. And then I started working with the person who was leading our cloud practice at the time, and he started to show me all these reports and Cost Explorer and all these things in there. And I just had no idea what he was doing. And then people started asking questions and I had no idea how to answer them. Next slide. Okay, so I said, at first I thought I can definitely do this. It's not a problem. I've done it before. I can do it again. Next slide. And then I started looking into it, and it became a much bigger, more complicated endeavor that I thought. Not understanding the cloud was one thing, but not understanding the data that I was looking at was another. And what was I supposed to do with it? And so if I knew, how did I get other people to know? That was a big problem also. I started creating all of these reports, but what was I going to do with them? Like, how do you get the visibility out to the business line? And I was introduced to one of my cloud cost management vendors, who I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say or not, but it was Cloudability. And I said to them, what do I do with all this data? Who needs to see this? What am I supposed to be showing? How do I do? And they said, calm down, take a breath, which is the next slide. And they said, well, let me introduce you to the FinOps Foundation. And I think you might be able to find some camaraderie and some answers and some support through that organization. And I am not here to promote anything or anybody, but I don't know where I would be without the FinOps Foundation. So to all of you who are new out there,
thanks, Amy.
take advantage of it. Look on their website, reach out to the people. There were a number of people who I reached out directly to try to just make some sense out of all of this. You can go to the next slide. And besides reaching out to my community, I really had to determine who are the people within my own organization that need to support FinOps. You cannot do it by yourself. It is definitely a village. And I started to look at my engineers, my architects, my other vendors, my TAM, if you have a TAM from, or the equivalent, I don't know what Azure calls it, but I'm gonna learn. So I just started reaching out to all of these people and asking them their perspective and how do we do this and where should we go? And I started to build this team, taking representatives from each of these areas along with the business line. So you need your business line support people as well. We now have contact people from each of our business lines who are here to support us. We now have the executive buy-in that we didn't really have before. Apparently, there was this big migration to the cloud first adoption strategy. Nobody thought about it from what does the OpEx look like, going from a very capital centric organization where OpEx was sort of kind of thought more of, as an afterthought, support, maintenance things. Now the whole cost of running this thing is now an OpEx spend, and really nobody had thought about what that meant. So we really started to put all of the right dashboards and all of the right reporting and all of the right visibility. We did lunch and learns. We did everything we could think of. I was lucky enough to obtain a resource. It was my only full-time resource and still is, Mike Barry, who is on this call with us now. And we really made a crusade to put all of the data in front of all of the people, to get champions from our architecture group. We had a couple of champions there, and now nobody does anything in the cloud without me knowing about it, without me approving it, without me confirming with my budget with my finance partners. Right sizing recommendations are taken a lot more seriously now. That's always a struggle in the FinOps world, is how do you get people who are hired to innovate, to migrate, to move, to build, to step back and say, wait a minute, I think we may be able to do this in a more cost-effective model. They never thought about that before. They never cared. You handed them a contract or a package or a server, and they just went and they built it. And now they're accountable for the spend and for making sure that we're utilizing the value of the cloud. We always like to say we are not the roadblock. I'm not here to tell you what you can or cannot do. We're here to tell you how to use it better, to get the most out of the money that we are spending instead of just the waste. So we really made a push to get to individual meetings, reaching out to all of these people. And it took a while. I think we're going on year 3 now. And I think we finally have a seat at every table that we want. We have the executive meetings on the calendar for all of next year to review what is now another journey for us was creating a budget. How do you create a cloud budget? That is a very difficult thing to do. People aren't planning the way they used to, and it's hard to get down to the application level, but we did it for next year, and we're super proud of all the work that we did in that area as well. This has really become from literally me knowing nothing about this world to now a champion at my company, and I am so proud of what we've developed here. And I couldn't have done it without this group. Am I done?
No, that's great, Amy. I thank you for the kind words about the foundation. I think, when I hear budgeting, I always think of like budgeting cloud is sort of a 4-letter word, right? And nobody wants to get into it, and getting that so that you as the FinOps person leader are not only seated at the table but are welcomed, right? Because often we're the annoying people who come with the right sizing reports, right? And how to move past that.
Yes.
So what is next for your team? You've got one person. Like, what are the next challenges you're tackling?
So I feel like we're probably not going to get more resources, although I ask pretty much every day in every forum and every way I can. But I feel like the answer is utilize the people who are around you more. So that's what we're trying to do.
Nice. Yep.
We have some big initiatives going on for the rest of this year and next year. And one of them is automating our actuals, budget and forecast and variance reporting. Super manual, and Mike spends a lot of time pulling reports or pulling data from Confluence, and now we're up to, I don't know.
Hallo Marc.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I think
Ja,
that was
dauert nicht lange. Ich wollte mich nur
unmuted.
nach dem aktuellen Stand erkundigen,
One
bei euch mit
second.
der
We'll mute
Umorganisation.
him. All right. Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
We're up to about 130, 140 apps running in the cloud, workloads that are steady state, nice, good workloads up there. But still the forecasting and getting our business lines to update their forecast, and then taking that data, turning it around, applying all of the discounts and all of the savings plans, putting all that back and showing a business line level forecast that we can drill down into an application level. It's a lot of work, and we're doing it, and not me, Mike. But it's very manual. So automating that using, I don't want to say it out loud because it's my internal team who's doing it in that tool. But it's going to save us a ton of time, so we can now focus on the other things. And some of the other things are automating more of how we do our provisioning in Spot. Hopefully, we're going to be doing a Spot assessment to identify some workloads that are Spot ready, I guess, who can withstand the auto scaling the way we need to do it, that are able to use the launch templates. And so we can turn our Spot utilization from probably 10%, and I'd like it to get to over 50%. So I know that's a big goal for next year, but that's definitely something we're working on. We're doing a lot of cleanup work as well. I set my own timer.
Oh, perfect. And actually on that topic, Amy, maybe we should move you into the breakout room. So folks, at the end, Amy and Yulia, who's also telling FinOps story, are going to be in a breakout room so we can keep hearing the stories and ask questions. So thank you, Amy, so much for being a part of this journey with us. Next thing we want to talk about is the FinOps Framework. Take a drink of water, or if you're in the Netherlands, a drink of beer. And actually, Vaz, I'd love to bring you in here to ask you the question, where would Amy's story go into the FinOps Framework?
Yeah, thanks, JR. And Amy, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think, before answering your question, JR, I just want to take a moment to kind of reflect on, Amy highlighted some very key points in her journey. And one of the ones that I think is important to mention again is FinOps. Solving your FinOps or your cloud cost management challenges is not just a technical problem to solve. Amy talked a lot about the culture change that's required and getting mind share. And so, to answer your question, JR, her story was a great segue into the framework, because one of the things we're trying to do with the framework,
like we planned that somehow.
Sorry, what?
So it's like we planned that almost. That's like,
yeah, almost like we had planned it. I wish we had rehearsed it. I'd be a lot less nervous. So what I was saying is the framework, our goal with the framework is not only to make it accessible, but also to make it adaptable. Because as Amy's story highlights, your FinOps journey is also very specific to your organizational needs and your business requirements. And so what we're trying to do is not only build out the concepts, but create a library of resources where you can come and, regardless of your maturity level, not only learn about the concepts and have some direction about how to organize and structure your FinOps practice, but also find resources that will help you figure out what activities and how you should be doing those activities in order to set up a successful FinOps practice. And so that's what we've been kind of focusing over the last few months, is building out that framework and the information architecture there. And so for Amy, what we have is both our domains and our capabilities in the framework speak to a lot of the needs in her organization around establishing allocation metadata so that she can do her costs and her budgeting, establishing forecasting, strategies, managing commitments, and optimizing their rates and their usage. So with that note, Jared, if you just go to the next slide, our focus has been defining on these functional activities, these capabilities. And with that in mind, I'd like to introduce actually one of our working groups that has been working on a capability, and that capability is called Resource Utilization and Efficiency. And specifically today joining us are Boops and who's else is joining us? Oh, and Mike. Yeah, Boops and Mike. So Boops and Mike, if you're on the line, I'd love for you all to speak a little bit about the work you've done to help us build out the framework that is in service of folks like Amy and all the other practitioners that are looking for direction and help with building out their FinOps practice.
Thanks, Faz. This is Mike. Amy talked about business value and getting the best value for the money you spend in her presentation. And that's very much the focus of the Reducing Waste group. And as we look at resource utilization and efficiency, we're guided by the idea that our aim ought to be to look for best business value from every resource. That turns out, as all of us in the working group have discovered in the last few weeks, to be a lot more complicated than you might have thought when you first start to think about it. If you consider the massive range of things you might consider to reduce the cost of a resource without harming its performance or introducing new risk, it extends across a wide spectrum of things. You might change the vendor, you might change the architecture, you might change its capacity, you might change all sorts of things. Of course, the guiding principle is if you make the change, does the business value go up? In that case, it's probably worth doing if it's economically viable to make the change. So we try to incorporate that in as few words as we can in defining this capability. Obviously, it's going to look a little different as you mature in FinOps at crawl stage. Probably happy just to get some basic stakes in the ground, but as you mature through walk and into run, you're going to move towards more stable processes and maybe some automation. So we're working on that. If you've got any ideas about how to do it, join the working group and contribute. Boops, maybe you can talk us through the next, some of the functional activity we worked on.
Yep, so one of the sections that we focused on were the personas. So within the working group, we're defining what each of these personas, so whether you're coming from a business background, finance, exec, engineering, what the sort of roles and expectations are for you in this capability. One of the things that we noted in our working group, we've got a heavy engineering focus. So a lot of what we're putting down is biased at the moment. So we need everyone's help on refining that. So as day 29 of the 50 days of FinOps, we've put in what we've got so far, and we'd like some feedback from that, especially from personas outside of engineering. So you can see that on the Slack channel in Framework.
And for folks who aren't familiar, we're running 50 days of FinOps where we post in Slack questions to get a conversation going around FinOps concepts. And that's what Boops is referring to. It's one way to contribute to the conversation and also help build out resources. And day 29 is focused on the great work this working group is doing and looking to get some more input from you all.
Awesome, great work, group. Boops, always got to give you a shout out as well. I think you were part of the original early group of under 30. So thanks for being part of the foundation for so long, last couple of years. Good to see your face. Oops, I've got Mike still spotlighted. There we go. Zoom controls. If Eugene is on the phone, you can make fun of me later. So next speaker is Robert Duffy. And I actually met Robert at the first conference I went to in person a few weeks back at KubeCon Los Angeles. And he was speaking about his work at Expedia Group, which is actually, as you'll see here, a whole series of different brands under the Expedia umbrella, about re-platforming the entire organization, bunch of different brands, bunch of applications into a single one, and the challenges associated with that. And when I heard his talk, I immediately got his email and I was like, you got to speak at the FinOps Foundation next, because all the concepts he covered around replatforming, particularly this title, How to Create a Movement, Not a Mandate, are very, very applicable to the world in which we live. So Robert, hope you're on the line there. He is working on integrating this cost awareness process into Expedia, and we would love to hear your story. Also, just a shout out, Rob, you have probably one of the best video setups that I've seen. I actually had to up my game after looking at yours, so thanks for the inspiration. That is not a virtual background he's in front of. That's a great best part.
I think there's a website where you can, it's like a stack share, but you can do your video setup sharing. I have to dig it out again. I'll have to post on that, and then you can. There
we go. Welcome. You've got about 10 minutes here to dive in.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, and really excited to kind of share a little bit about this story. What's funny about the story that I'll share is we have definitely gone on a FinOps journey at Expedia Group, but we've also gone on a quality journey and a reliability optimization journey, and we've gone on a developer experience journey, and we sort of rolled all these into this transformation and this platformization of Expedia Group. And we didn't follow the FinOps playbook, the crawl, walk, run playbook when we were doing a lot of the FinOps stuff. In fact, I don't think many of the people that were driving that transformation knew about the FinOps Foundation, back to Amy's slides, but we've kind of followed it by, osmosis. If you look back at the sort of the plan that we followed and the roadmap that we took, we've done many of the things that are in the playbook. So it's really exciting to see that be formalized and have an organization that people can look to and not have to reinvent the wheel every time they go through this. So I'm excited to get a little bit more deeply involved in this and help you all think about it. A little bit about Expedia Group, just to set some strategic context. We're one of the largest travel brands. We have a house of brands strategy for travel here. You probably booked on some of these sites. You might not have known that they were owned by Expedia Group. The developer community for us is about 2,000. You can kind of click through. There's a build on this, JR. There's about 5,000 developers or technologists within the company. We run over 200 travel sites in 70 countries. So we have a pretty big footprint in the global travel industry. Around about the end of 2019, Expedia had acquired a lot of companies. We had a lot of independent brands. We've gone all in on the DevOps culture, which I'm sure everyone knows, enables developers to bring their own tools and pick their own setups and pick their own pipelines. And between about 2015 and 2019, there was just a tremendous explosion in open source tools, and containerization had taken over, and people were able to just bring and mix and match a whole bunch of different ways of doing things. And then we had cloud migrations that everyone's experienced here. And the interesting thing at Expedia Group is we had teams that were operating independently. So brands were often operating their own stacks. They were free to make their own technology decisions. And it was a lot of stuff everywhere. If you go to the next slide. What that meant, there's a build on this one again, Joe. What that meant is when you took a step back and you looked at our developer tools or how people were building software, especially in cloud native ways, in any one of the categories, and we had about 140 different capabilities across our developer journey, there were 3 to 5 competing tools. And you can imagine that when you put all the different permutations of all those different competing tools together and the ways that different teams are assembling them, and you add that to the fact that we had a bunch of different business units operating independently, we had hundreds of permutations of pipelines and ways of getting software and ways of running software, and some home-built tools and some cloud-native tools and some open-source tools and some off-the-shelf managed tools. So we had a lot of stuff. I think when we cataloged our applications, we had about 21,000 applications, and that was causing a lot of pain in the developer journey, and a lot of comments in our developer survey around onboarding time and switching applications was difficult, and operational visibility was different, and moving from one team to another, or understanding if things were working or not working was really difficult. So we went on this big journey called the Common Developer Toolkit, and the goal of that was getting down to one tool for one job. And if you go to the next slide, our kind of outcomes for that were really focused on the developer. So I think a lot of things like quality and cost optimization and resiliency and finance and FinOps often come as top-down business drivers or drivers of business value, and they are given to the developers, and it's like, hey, go and improve your costs, or go and improve your quality, or go and improve your resiliency, and not focused on the developer and trying to get them to do the right thing, or trying to enable them to do the right thing, or get them passionate about quality or cost optimization and resiliency, and not thinking about the program, but thinking about the customer. And our target outcomes of this whole activity were really focused on the developer and getting them passionate about doing the things that we wanted them to do, and building the platform in a way that enabled them to do the right thing easily, made it a little bit harder to do the wrong thing, and gave them enough information to make the right decision, and grew that muscle for our developer community. So we had like 3 target outcomes. One was removing all friction in the DevOps journey. Obviously, with stuff everywhere, it's easy to see where the friction and waste was happening in that developer journey. And then provide some exceptional customer service to our engineering team. A lot of platforms treat internal engineers differently to the way that you would treat external customers. You don't have the same level of support. It's okay for a developer to be blocked for 4 days while they're trying to figure stuff out. And we wanted to really flip that on its head and start treating our internal customers, internal developers and partners as customers. And in fact, one of the biggest transformations we went through is just using the word customer with our internal developers, and getting our team familiar with saying customer. And we went through maybe a 3-month period of everyone sitting there and saying, well, what do you mean by customer? You mean external customers? And we're like, no, we mean internal customers. And when you do that, it's actually kind of amazing what happens to the team, and also what happens to your internal customers or internal partner teams that you're working with. When they hear you talk about them as a customer, they kind of change their mindset about that their reaction to things that you're asking them to do, or things that you're talking to them about. And then finally, providing this cost optimization, quality, and resiliency by default was really our target, and still is our target, and we're getting towards it. Go to the next slide. As a goal and as a vision for my team, I said that we're focused on the developer journey, but really for our team, across all of these different things and across all of the different tools that we own, our main reason for being is to take this time from imagining a change, imagining a different feature on the website, and getting it out to production in a cost-effective, high quality and resilient way, getting that as close to 0 as possible. It's obviously a pretty long-term goal. We'll sort of trend towards it, and I don't think we'll ever get to 0. We have a speed of light problem that we have to counter at some point in time, but that's definitely a long-term goal for us, and it will last us a few decades at least. If you look at 2021, how far we've come on this journey, since 2019, we deprecated 149 different tools. That enabled us to free up about 100 developers worth of work who are, supporting the operations and maintenance and care and feeding of those tools. And we achieved about a 20% reduction in our license spend across those tools. We also got down from, we got to about 10,000 applications in our portfolio. We had more than that, believe it or not, and it was spread across a number of different hosting and runtime environments. And then we also implemented this EG Cloud cost governance model, which is going to look awfully familiar to the FinOps Foundation. And we were able to get this part of the process of managing how we were spending on costs and right-sizing our infrastructure, which is a great win for us. Go to the next slide. And then that's enabled us, that platform has kind of enabled us to kind of go through what's next for us, and kind of go through what I think you call the run phase in the FinOps Foundation. And if you just click through the next couple of slides, really building that foundation has given the confidence for us to embark on our next great platform journey, which is standardizing the runtime environment for 10,000 applications. For those of you familiar with Kubernetes, we have around 600 clusters, and they're managed by about 500 teams. And the platform that we built, and the developer experience that we have, and the quality and resiliency and cost control that we have by default has enabled us to embark on a huge journey here. I was talking to at the KubeCon talk that JR mentioned. It's probably the largest, or one of the largest, enterprise Kubernetes migrations going right now. And we couldn't do that unless we had the governance and the confidence and the ability and the trust in our engineers to be able to do the right things from a cost, quality, and resiliency perspective. So And then if you go next. And the last thing we're doing with this is moving our focus on cost left in the developer cycle. I think the traditional model that everyone's pretty familiar with is you build something, you get it running, you put it in production, you put some metrics around it, you monitor it, and then you look at how much was spent and how to right-size things and whether you've wasted money on infrastructure or not. And what we're trying to do is move that left in the process so that we provide a lot of visibility into cost and cost optimizations way before, hopefully, the code is even checked in. And by doing that, we hope to get a far more savings where the cost of change is lower. It's a lot easier to change your applications when you're developing it, writing the code, than it is after it's shipped and it's out and running in production. So that's all great. That's our little story. But I think what's relevant for you all is how we got there. And this is the sort of, the topic that we're here to talk about. So when you're doing a big transformation like this, and this is my 5th large enterprise replatforming, I sort of stole this quote from von Clausewitz, which is everything is simple in enterprise replatforming, but the simplest thing is difficult. And you have 2 choices when you're approaching this. Let's go to the next slide. You can either build your enterprise replatforming or your enterprise change based on a mandate, or you can base it on a movement. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to build a movement. I've done mandates before. I think we've all been involved in those programs and projects where we've driven large enterprise change by mandate. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we created a movement and the steps that we went through to get there. So if you go to the next slide. This is our playbook for enterprise replatforming. I mean, it's really the same regardless of what you're doing. You have to form an amazing team, pick some of your tools, find your allies, win over your detractors, and then execute like crazy. This is what most of us do. When you just focus on these 2, picking your tools and executing, which is what a lot of programs do, because we're engineers, these are easy to define things, they're easy to checklist out, right? Like you can get a checklist for picking tools, you can get a checklist for executing. What you end up doing is you kind of trend towards that mandate approach, and you don't build a lot of support and you don't build a lot of movement. And you can get it done if you're lucky, focusing on these 2. It'll be tough, it'll be hard, but you can get it done. Where the most successful programs and movements focus on is these 3 items here: forming this amazing team, finding your allies, and winning over your detractors. And if you do this and you focus on these 3 areas, what actually ends up happening is you build much more support and grassroots support for your transformation. You multiply the amount of resources. I heard Amy there talk about, hey, we might not be able to get more resources, but we've got to leverage the people around us. And really that only comes from building a movement, not driving things through mandates. So let's talk about finding allies and winning over detractors a little bit. So when you're looking at finding allies, the best thing to do is really take a structured approach to listening to your customers and understanding why things are hard, or why they're doing things that you don't want them to do, or doing things that they or not doing things that you want them to do. And that takes a lot of time, right? Like sitting down and listening with customers and spending some time in forums and really doing listening tours or holding office hours or making sure that people feel like you are listening to them is a huge win for your creating allies. The other thing to do is build these forums for involvement. Slack channels are great. Internal meet and greets are great. Actually, a lot of the stuff that the FinOps Foundation or something like the Cloud Native Foundation and open source movements do, right? Like we have days of DevX, we have end user groups that talk about us internally, and it's a great model for you to copy. And then finally, on this, you can find a lot of allies outside your company. For me, allies give you support and they help you with your cause, and things like the FinOps Foundation, partners, different companies, vendors that you work with will provide you a lot of support. And this is good for your mental health. I think when you're running large platformings or replatformings or large enterprise change initiatives, you have a lot of people who are against you or providing a lot of resistance, and that can take its toll. It can be hard work, right? Like sitting through the 3rd meeting of the day where someone's shouting at you because you've disrupted their roadmap, or they're not able to do something, and you get exhausted. And for me, balancing the number of meetings I have like that with the number of meetings with allies is a real boon for my mental health. And I hope people take that away and think about that too. And my key on finding allies is anytime you help someone do something or a job that they're trying to do, you win a little bit of their heart. And really thinking about enabling people and accelerating people through their job is what I try and convince my team to do. Let's talk about detractors. Detractors are a fact of life when you're running enterprise transformations. There's a lot of them. They're exhausting, and sometimes it's hard to stay objective, stay pragmatic, not solution, not defend, but just listen and just hear what they have to say. And if you can do that and find the strength to do that, and you can teach your team to find the strength to do that, you'll actually spend a lot of time winning over detractors just by listening to them. And it'll be a remarkable transformation, but it does take a lot of effort to train yourself and your team to not like start solutioning or start explaining why this is the right thing. What we do is take any rumors or any comments like, hey, this won't scale, like this isn't going to work, like this we don't see how this is going to help us. We take those and we turn them into tickets and put them in a system, and we commit to tracking them down. And when you do that, what starts off as 100 reasons why something won't work eventually ends up with 3 that matter, and you can chase them down and you get some confidence there. And then lastly, proving your value with metrics is a really great way to win over detractors. And by metrics, I don't just mean the metrics that you're delivering to the business, but I mean the metrics that you're delivering to them. Like, how are you helping that person do their job, or how are you helping remove a pain, and what is the metric that they care about? And if you go to the next slide, the ways that we do that and the ways that we can bring this metric-based approach to the transformations that we lead is we use a tool from human-centered design called journey mapping, where we actually look at a developer and the tasks they have to do, whether it's improving their cloud cost optimization, or whether it's improving their reliability or improving their quality. And we map that journey and we look at all the steps that they take. And we think about how we can remove friction in that process and how we can help them do the job that we're asking them to do. And then once we have that, we identify metrics and we go through those and have dashboards and put monitoring in place, not just for the quality, reliability, and cost purposes, but also for the actual journey of the work and following those engineers through the work. And then lastly, we set pretty aggressive goals on those, and we have team-led initiatives to try and drive down the friction in the system for doing the things that we want the developers to do. And with that, I think I am at time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rob. I love this idea of like your job is to make the engineers move more quickly. And I think a lot of the most successful FinOps movements I've seen have been more of a developer enablement approach, right? Rather than a, we are here to tell you to do something differently. So really cool to see that in place. I know you're sort of just starting your cost journey in the organization. So we'd love to get you back, in 6 months or a year to hear how it's gone. But thank you so much.
I'd love to talk about the shift left journey and like show you how we're getting there. So I think it'd be fantastic.
Awesome. So we are, as usual, running a little behind. So if you have questions for Rob, we're going to stick him into a breakout room at the end, and you can jump in there and ask some more.
You're on mute, JR.
JR is muted, so I'll take over.
Yep, with that, I was just unmuting and removing the spotlight from Rob.
Okay, go ahead.
Going to the other Rob. Here we go. Boom.
Go ahead and advance one time for me. That's a tough act to follow in many regards, so I'll try to do my best here. Since, as we heard earlier, with our 1,000th certified practitioner, we've been doing the FinOps certified practitioner courses and certifications since September of 2019. We now have over 1,000. And these practitioners have demonstrated their knowledge of FinOps through this training and experience, and they've developed an understanding of the challenges that cloud brings, how to build a common language, how to manage those challenges. So we really want this certification to be the kind of thing that somebody joining a FinOps team or working on a FinOps team would have to allow them to be as effective as they possibly can. As an aside, the FinOps Certified Practitioner course is available as a self-paced course. It's also available as an instructor-led course. And this was covered in the pre-meetings time, but we will be seeing a rate increase or a cost increase for these courses starting in January. So if you've got end of year training money and this is something that you're interested in getting, now is a great time to do that. If you do take the FinOps survey, the State of FinOps survey, you will also get a 30% off coupon that you can use in addition to a free t-shirt, as Steve points out. So take that survey, get that certificate, and then get that coupon, and then use that for your training here. In July of this year, we also launched the first of a series of training programs for engineers. And those are persona-based trainings that aren't a certification track, but they're trainings to help those different parts of our organization understand what their job is and how they can interact most effectively with a FinOps team in your organization. And since the very beginning, we have had one big request that is first among everybody who's taken any of the training or certification programs, and that has been for a more advanced FinOps Professional course. And so I'm happy to announce today that we are going to be launching our FinOps Certified Professional course, and this will be a course that is a program overall. It's not just a single class, but this is going to be available for pre-sale today, and it is a masterclass program for experienced FinOps practitioners who want to move to the next level, further their careers, further their knowledge and their current practice, and sort of round out their FinOps skills. And so I wanted to invite a couple of the people who have been working with me on the working group. We've had a working group put together for several months now, creating the content for this. Parker Nankalis and Ben Demora, and I'd like them to tell us a little bit more about the course and why they're doing it. And I'll hand over first, I think, to Parker.
So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the structure of the course. First of all, anyone joining this course is going to already be an experienced practitioner. And the course goes through every FinOps capability, as well as some special topics. There are also a service requirement and content contribution requirements. And so earning the FinOps Professional certification will mean that you have a demonstrated knowledge of advanced FinOps principles. And you'll not only be able to you'll be prepared to build and lead a FinOps team, but you'll also deepen your current FinOps expertise. And so you'll be able to add more value in whatever FinOps role you currently perform. So there's going to be 2 instructor-led courses or classes, one at the beginning and one at the end. And the class sizes are going to be kept small, up to 12 people. And the reason for that is just to make sure everyone has a chance to contribute, everyone can share their experiences. The working group that we've been working with to help create this course was set up in the same way. We have a small group. There's people with different experience levels, people in different industries, different backgrounds. And it's been really interesting because of that diversity, we've had really insightful conversations. Every time we talk, I write things down to bring back to improve our own FinOps team, or write down so I have references for when we face certain challenges later. And so the first instructor-led course focuses on building and establishing an effective culture, and also building and managing and evolving a FinOps team. And then the last instructor-led course focuses on strategy, and the group will work through a business case at a sample organization to solve FinOps challenges. In between those 2 are individual modules that cover every FinOps capability. Some are required, some are optional, and the special topics. And the cool thing about this model is those individual modules in between, you can go through with the original group from your first course, or you can go through in smaller groups. You can go through those individually. There will be mentors available. And so if to help you go through those, so whether you're going through as a group or by yourself, you can use those mentors as a resource to share experiences with, to help you get through those modules. And you can also set your own pace. So while you might want to go through with your original group and take the last instructor-led course with your original group, your own schedule might mean you have to go a little bit slower or a little bit faster. And so you can work through those at your own pace. And you don't have to join the same second instructor-led class with the same group as the first one. You can join whatever course fits your schedule. So the goal of this course is not only to help expand your current knowledge, but also to provide you with an ongoing network and resources that you can use continually throughout your career to help you with whatever you're working on in FinOps. And on the next slide, if you go to the next slide, Ben's going to talk about some of the other benefits you get from this course.
Yeah, thanks, Parker. So apologies for the shameless self-promotion there. I needed somebody's face to put onto a mock-up for a profile. So why would you want to do this? I mean, I'm already seeing people talk in the chat about saying they're already sold, they already want to do this. This is great. But I mean, why did I want to get involved? I mean, I really wanted to build a stronger learning network, right? Of people that I'd studied with, that I'd gone through these different modules and pieces with and learned from and shared understanding with, to grow some deeper insight, to get much more into, okay, well, you know, how do you deliver accountability in a way that's scalable, in a way that makes sense? How do you govern cloud spend, all this kind of stuff, right? I also wanted to, again, shamelessly self-promote, I wanted to sort of prove my FinOps ability and have some level of certification that says, you know, I know what I'm talking about, or at least I hope I do, that kind of helps me to develop myself as a FinOps professional, as a FinOps practitioner through my career. I also love teaching. I probably taught a few of the people on the call. I love delivering the FinOps practitioner course. It's so much fun. I always learn something new. Every single time I teach that course, somebody will come to that course and give me a new insight that I hadn't considered or wasn't fully aware of. So I wanted to get more involvement in that as well, which is part of what the FinOps Pro will require. As Parker said, as part of this is going to be a service element to prove your capability, right? I wanted to get more involved in the FinOps community to build this. And also, of course, I mean, everybody loves the really cool LinkedIn badge, right? So it looks really slick. It's all like dark gray and stuff rather than yellow. And yeah, that's going to be one of those credibly things. So the reason why there's a profile on the right-hand side is because the other piece is that there will be kind of a register, if you like, or a collection of people who have passed the FinOps Pro certification. And you can then sort of interface and interact with these people and they can list their availability, their enthusiasms, what they really want to work on, what they want to talk about, what they want to build within the community to find the right. So if you want to find out more about how to budget and forecast, definitely don't talk to me, but you know, that's the sort of thing that you would get. So this is why I wanted to get involved in doing this. So everybody's going to have their own reasons, but these are just some thoughts to consider. Thanks. I think that's my bit.
Okay, thanks, Ben and Parker. We have had a super active group involved in doing this, and you can tell my dog Rosie is also very excited about this. The FinOps Certified Professional course will be available to begin in February of 2022. So we'll begin our public sessions in February. That's available for pre-sale now, and the link there is shown if you want to start up and reserve your spot. I did want to do a shout out to all of the folks who have been on our core working group. We have been meeting multiple times weekly over the past few months. Dusty, Dina, Mike, Kenny, Scott, Ben, and Parker. Tremendous amount of work from these folks, and they will be among the mentors and teachers who will be helping the first set of classes who go through the program. So very excited about this, and please get out on the website and check it out.
Well, thank you folks for putting this together. We've been talking about it for a long time, and it's cool to see it come together. A couple things to highlight on that. One is like this really is a contribution model. So somebody asked, can I go take the exam? The answer is no, you can't, because just testing out of it isn't enough. You need to be a teacher in the community. You need to engage with the community, contribute content. FinOps is evolving. We want you all to be plugged in. The other thing is, like, look at this mix of folks involved. And this is classic FinOps Foundation. You've got Dina, who was at Nike before and is now at Smarsh. You've got Parker, who's at the Church of Latter-day Saints. You've got, Ben, who we just saw, who's at Rackspace. We've got this crazy mix of companies and industries. And what's fascinating is everybody is facing the same challenges and coming together. So that component of this class, which is the cohort aspect, like, yeah, my classmates at Stanford. I didn't go to Stanford, right? You can go back to this group, my classmates in the FinOps Pro, which I think is going to be pretty cool. It's also cohort-based, which means we're only doing a small set at a time. I think it's like 20 or so. I'm planning to be in the first or second cohort. I think Ben's going to be in there. So it'd be cool to see what the mix of people we get in there also. All right. Well, with that, our penultimate talk before the breakout sessions on our penultimate summit, we're going to hear from Yulia Perlis before we get into the container cost allocation group, which is our final bit. Yulia, are you there?
Hello. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, Yulia. So thank you for joining us. Really interesting to hear your talk. You know, the reason we reached out to Yulia on this was she's done a FinOps practice now at a very large organization and is now doing it at a very tiny organization. And we wanted to hear the journey between those two. What's different? What happened? And sort of, you know, what that has looked like. So Yulia, would love to hear the story. And maybe if I can open with a question for you. What's been the driver for you to go from big company doing this to small company doing FinOps? What has changed?
It's not so much as what has changed. It's more of, I really believe in a big company, you get less technical in FinOps. You have less opportunity to deep dive into the products and try to impact the architecture. You can teach, you can facilitate, you can kind of encourage, but you get less of an opportunity to deep dive. I've been working in Amdocs for 8 years. So, and I've like throughout my entire career, I've been working in huge enterprises. I never had a chance to do a startup. And so it kind of, they called me and they had this cool offering. And it seemed like, so I moved to a startup. It's called Logs.io. It's a pretty stable startup. They've been around for 6 years. They're well funded. They have nice revenue, but they've been in, for the past 6 years, they've been in this sprint of getting features out. And now they're getting to the stage where they're kind of realizing they need to take consideration of their costs. And they are from day one on cloud. So whether if in Amdocs for many years, Amdocs is a traditional company, it has been around for like 27 years, and about 24 years of it, Amdocs was primarily on-prem. There was, Amdocs has 7 data centers and etc. And many different products that are always shipped products. Meaning customer would come, they would sign a deal, Amdocs developers will do the customizations around the product, install them on servers, ship them to the customer. Somebody would go to the customer site, install the servers in their data center, etc. And it was a very different model than working on the public cloud. So when we started doing the transformation to the public cloud, it was a very different approach. Here, it's a company that's from day one, they were born on cloud. So I kind of wanted to have that experience. But yeah, I see already moved me to my first slide. So before I kind of start, everybody, keep me in the first slide. Everybody's always like, when I'm saying I'm from Amdocs, everybody's saying, oh yeah, Amdocs. But what does Amdocs do? Nobody kind of knows. Amdocs is a software company. It's been around for many years. They mainly cater for the telco market, meaning the AT&Ts, the Vodafones, etc. They provide billing, CRM, marketing analytics, etc. types of software. And from about 2 years ago, they're also providing their customers with digital transformation services, mainly to the public cloud and around FinOps and stuff like that. So it has about 25,000 employees, over 100 different products, 60 different business units, 7 data centers, 2 public cloud vendors, for now, you never know, and 1 FinOps solution. And I'm calling it a solution because, well, we had a team of, let's call it the full-time FinOps people, but really, and I think it's really touching on the 2 previous talks, it's never 2 people or 5 people, whoever. FinOps is a change in culture, is a change in mindset. And it's really not something you can do alone. Everybody needs to kind of do the move, do the change. And as I see it, FinOps is more of the team that is facilitating this process. Can you switch up to the next one? Yeah. So in Amdocs, we kind of started about 3 years ago, I think. I was at the time a project manager with IT, and I got a new project. They told me we need to do something public cloud. My requirement was basically, guys, we need a safe way for developers to consume public cloud. Well, there were no vendors speaking, just consume public cloud. Nobody was sure what it is, very, very deeply. And they mentioned something about cost. Understanding kind of the spend would be nice, but lower priority. First of all, let's stop getting hacked. We just, of course, got hacked like a few days before that. And Amdocs was starting to get worried about liability and stuff like that. So we kind of started the way, and we started really from building the team and understanding who are the relevant teams to partake in such a project. Because we had a virtualization team at the time, and we just built, I just finished building an on-prem cloud solution with them. So we kind of knew the people. We need the networking team. Of course, we need some information security advisors, but we probably need to start getting our customers who are in Amdocs. IT calls anybody else who is working outside of IT is customers, our internal customers, basically. So we needed our customers to kind of tell us what they need from this cloud. We needed to understand which cloud providers we want to start working with, because we had people starting testing out stuff, type of playgrounds at that time, but it was very unmanaged. It was more of a practice of people just putting their credit card and getting an expense, and it was type of a personal account. Sometimes it was their own personal email, sometimes it was their work email, which was a huge issue by itself. And it was all quite messy. Nobody knew where even how much money is going. So we kind of started with our first step of building that and doing the mechanism of getting a solution for the developers, for whoever needs to have public cloud, a managed way and a secured way for them to have public cloud. So we can actually start managing this public cloud. So once we got on the ground, we really started working on the cost part. And as every good FinOps story starts, it typically starts within the first Excel. You pull it from whatever FinOps tool you were using at that time. And you're thinking about, okay, now I have this huge Excel, who do I send it to? And you kind of start looking for those random BizOps people or finance people or procurement people or whoever is relevant in your company. And you're kind of starting to send it out to whoever you kind of think it's relevant to. And often those people in the beginning will not know what you want from them. And then you'll talk about a bit about it, and you'll understand it's not enough. Those Excels are never enough. And we kind of went into this process of, from an Excel, we developed into started developing dashboards, started using Power BI in the beginning, just was whatever we had off the shelf. Start developing Power BI dashboards with permissions, with some forecasting and analysis, budget plus actuals, and some very basic analysis. It was a monthly report, which is very not timely manner in the cloud world. And it was a start. And we continued with our set of dashboards, kind of going around the company and identifying the natural partners, our procurement people, our architects, and kind of building the forums and starting to kind of network internally, understand what do we need, which cloud vendors we prefer to work with, and what we prefer to do. And as the company matured in the public cloud, we started spending, our spend started to grow. So if in the beginning we had more of playground type of environments, we started to see more development environments, and CI/CD pipelines were starting to be created. And we really emphasized on education. So we started to arrange conferences, getting conferences from any cloud vendor who wanted Amdocs business. And as Amdocs, we had this huge power. When Amdocs is coming, when I'm calling somebody from Amdocs, as in identifying as an Amdocs employee and I'm saying, I'm looking to maybe start using your software or whatever, those vendors would typically kind of be excited about it, and they're willing to contribute their knowledge and their time in me, in our employees, in our developers, etc. So we had Toms and I think all cloud vendors doing type of conferences, type of studies, type of help, well, architected sessions, forums. We had a few CCOE kind of forums set up across the company. And our main job was mainly to facilitate and educate about cost effectiveness, ways to develop best practices, and etc. And our next step was where we really started to focus on automation. So basically, I got a good set of DevOps people who were amazing, and they wanted to evolve in the cloud. It made sense for that technical team, and I needed that technical expertise. And we started to developing automations around optimization recommendations. So it will be way easier to implement them. Cloud formation, Terraforms, image management, etc. Anything that can be managed and optimized according to FinOps best practices. We kind of try to go through it. And then about 2 years ago, Amdocs management declared, it was this huge declare across the company, we're moving to the cloud. The old model is basically out. All products are moving to the cloud. You have 1 year to do it. There was huge EDP deals signed with AWS, another huge partnership with Azure. Everything exploded. Our cost started growing, the amount of business units developing on the cloud grew tremendously. We actually received an approval to develop an enterprise-grade FinOps tool because Amdocs also decided to start doing this, offering our customers this digital transformation processes, and FinOps is quite an important part of it. And even internally in Amdocs, we never had a very good automatic tool. So we had our set of dashboards, but it was not one big tool that we kind of have all resources in it together. So we could, it will be easier to share one platform, having everything on it. And it was a great opportunity for us and a great learning curve. And it was a very interesting journey by itself. And by
hey Yulia, I wonder, and sorry to interrupt, I just, not your fault, we're a little behind on from the other talks. I'm looking at Vaz and Rob here. Could we maybe move some of the conversation over into the breakout room? Because we got one more piece after this. And I'm wondering if I can ask you sort of the takeaway, which is like, and this is for future conversation, the breakouts. You know, what you said, there's a lot of similar challenges from big company to small company, but you know, what has been different? What's been harder? What's been easier?
So I think eventually at the end of the day, the FinOps work from the day-to-day work that you typically do, like identifying your areas of, identifying your waste, identify saving opportunities. That's the same practices, same work. But what changes really is the perspective of people and kind of their past experience. So in Amdocs, I had people who've been working alongside me for 20 years in Amdocs. So they've grown in this traditional data center centric world. And now I need to show them, like, now we're on the cloud, and on the cloud, yeah, somebody told you pay as you go, but as Rob says, you actually pay for what you run. So yeah,
little dirty secret of cloud, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a huge change for them.
Yeah.
Because on data centers, everything you have, you basically run 24/7 because really otherwise you waste it. So it's a huge mindset change. Here in logs, they were born on the cloud. Like, it's given that you pay for what you run. Still, obviously, like on my second week, I found one database that was not deleted for 1 month. Like, yeah, it was a nice catch, but really, they grew on the cloud. It's a different culture. On the other hand, it's a startup, so they don't know the word budget. Like, it's
there's that
not
4-letter
part
word
of
again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we're starting to introduce the idea of quotas, and we're doing it very like gently, mainly at this stage when I'm saying, okay, we're going on a journey, it's a maturity journey, and using this type of terminology that would often go quite obviously in a enterprise, because an enterprise needs to change and evolve, and it has these huge projects every so many years. So kind of everybody went through it. Change management, transformation, they kind of know these terms. Most of the people already went through it at some point. With a startup, it's their only journey they know is the journey of the company.
Right.
And of course, there are people who are coming from different backgrounds, and I'm not the only one who's coming from an enterprise background. But yeah, I think it's a different culture, and the change is there. It's the mindset and the way you talk.
And that is the hard shift, right? As Rob Duffy said earlier, like the hardest, or the simplest thing is still the hardest. Or I'm paraphrasing the quote, but yeah, that mind shift. So would love to continue that conversation. I'm sorry to push everybody forward here. We got one more piece at the end here. Yulia is going to be in a breakout room at the end if you want to dig around those shifts. Thank you, Yulia. I'm sorry, we have two more pieces actually.
Yeah, but I'm
So
prepped and we're ready to go.
Stacy and Stevie.
Yeah, so hey everybody, I just want to talk about, we are starting the diversity, equity, and inclusion group, and I have Stevie here who met with a group of us 2 weeks ago, a week ago, I don't know time anymore, some time ago, to start this group. And Stevie, real quick, Jerry, you can advance the next slide, but Stevie, real quick, why did you feel like this was a group that you wanted to join, or why do you feel like the FinOps Foundation should have a diversity, equity, and inclusion group?
Hello, Stacy. I felt that this group was pretty important to join. Been in IT for the last 15 years. There's been a lot of times where you don't see a lot of people that look like me. And so when this group was announced that I was going to be created, I thought it'd be a good idea to be a part of it and kind of help push this forward in the FinOps Foundation. And then I also thought it was pretty good that the FinOps Foundation found that this was something important to go after and create a group for this.
Yeah, we totally appreciate that. And hey, I'm just going to keep the spotlight on you, Stevie. If you just kind of want to announce what the group is going to be doing, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So the group will be reporting to the governing board. And then this group will also be working on some programs in the foundation, a scholarship program, a FinOps mentorship, and partnering up with other DEI industry groups. The goal of this group is to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion within the FinOps Foundation. So if you're interested in that, please join us in the Slack work group channel for diversity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stevie. We're so happy to have you join this. There's also a great group of folks in there. Check out the Slack channel. We posted meeting notes from the last meeting along with recording, and we're excited to get everybody involved. So with that, back to you, JR.
Thank you, Stevie, and that group for kicking off this initiative. It is the first sort of step for us. So if you want to get involved, this is one of those working groups that's in the incubating stage. They're going to be working in the coming weeks, and we'll come back at the next event to share what they're focused on, what they're working on. And then we go to the last piece before breakouts. I'm going to put a lot of pressure on this group to move quickly because you have your own breakout and we can dig more deeply. But this is the container working group that's been going for a number of months, coming back with one of their updates. We'll pass here to David Sturs and Bala K to cover what's been happening.
All right. Hi, everyone. So happy to share an update and to promote the working group. I would like to give you an overview about why we exist, where we sit, how we work, what we do next, and why we need you. I'm here with Bala today. So I'm can I go one back? Okay, so I'm a practitioner, and I'm also the chair of the SIG Containers group and the working group for container cost allocation. And I'm here with Bala, who is the tech lead. Okay. So yeah, the overall mission and vision and goals of the SIG containers, and then why the working group container cost allocation exists. So Bala and me, we are pretty aligned that the FinOps Foundation produces very much valuable content. There's a lot of things to read from the framework and also the projects with the capabilities and such. So, but we have the feeling that we should produce more practical real-world examples, bite-sized, that you can consume, that we are going to produce, and that you can hook up and link to the framework capabilities and all these things. So this is also our goal, and that's we would like to show you in one use case that we made up for achieving that. So where we sit is actually from the there's one first deliverable that we produced of the SIG containers, which is calculating container costs. You might be aware of this, and we link back our work to this one. Can you next? Okay, so and also when it comes to the framework and capabilities, you may have noticed that there's a cost allocation page and extensive document already, and we are not about to change that. It's more that we're going to apply this, or maybe we feedback to this, what you can read here. And actually, again, we are trying to produce best practices and really deliverables that you can use in your daily work and challenges around container cost allocation. And here I would like to hand over to Bala.
Sure, thanks, David. So to get started, we ran a survey early this summer within the FinOps community, asking people to stack rank the container problem space. They would like the working group to get or target contents on. So the results were a surprise. The top two were the container cost allocation itself and the container cost optimization. Since today's summit session revolves around the culture of accountability, also wanted to point out that in our survey results, that was actually one problem space as well. So we would start working on a lot of those contents, and we want, if interested, we would like more volunteers. So please do reach out. Next slide, JR. So the first use case we have taken up is the most common one with a lot of organizations running into, and that is specific to the container cost transparency initiative when using the shared platform. So in our example, we have a shared platform operated by a central platform engineering team, and that platform is used as a deployment target for 20+ deployments that teams require and that develop business capabilities on it. So we are looking at this use case through a persona lens, trying to understand through the different personas on what the sample assets those personas would be interested, like the example report, the dashboard widgets, tags and labels, deployment YAML file, etc. Questions those persona might need answers to, and also the challenges they run into. Next slide, JR. So the key personas in play for these examples are the executives, finance, procurement, business, product owner, engineering, and operations, like the developers and the platform engineering team that's interested with the task of building the application and deploying it in the shared platform. So the goal literally for the group is to seek and bring actual examples from people who play this role in real life, or do a role play exercise and build requirements with the working group members. So we would then consolidate those challenges from these different personas into runbook and best practices documentation. I think the next slide. So the next step. So we are currently in the midst of drafting a runbook for label schemas and best practices on enforcing labels through our use case example I updated. With that, I'll pass on to David for additional details and outreaches.
So now that you learned the actual use case, here's one of the first deliverables we are working on, which is how to get and derive concrete label schema in that style. So this is applying so that you can then apply in your daily work. So we will also come up with a questionnaire and a run book how to get to these kind of label sets that fits your organization and the view that you need. Okay, next. Yeah, also cost dashboards. So we would like to ask the community, everyone that can contribute, also to share maybe their cost dashboards, maybe anonymize it, that would be possible. And we will also produce some content and runbook around it. Next, please. Okay, so yeah, so reporting. So we would like to hear from the community around how they report on all kind of costs around container cost allocation. So KPIs and such. That is something we would like to work on. Next one, please. Yeah, and last but not least, the automation policy as code. So myself implemented label compliance using the open policy agent. I'm happy to share this and discuss it with the group. So join us if you're a practitioner. Would be great to have the conversation. And we have a breakout session right now. So feel free to join us, to reach out, to discuss your major challenges that you have currently with your container cost allocation. Happy to help. Join our working group. It's every Thursday. So, and help us to contribute and deliver the content for the community. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thank you, Bala. Appreciate you going through that. Yeah, this is a cool iteration of a group that's put out content. It's continuing to add more. So excited to get more folks in there.